This episode of Midco Sports Magazine is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
This is just going to be time lost, and it's devastating for our program.
Hello, welcome again to Midco Sports Magazine. It is April 2020, hoping your home confinement is going as well as humanly possible right now. This is our third show now that we've talked about the national shutdown and the secondary effects it has had on our beloved sports seasons. This week, we'll talk with the new head football coach at Northern State University. How in the world do you try and take over a program when you can't get your guys together? David Brown has that story coming up. And in the strength and conditioning game, you got to use it or lose it. Jay Elson has a story on how they are lifting each other up and still getting in some workouts at the University of South Dakota. And then what about all the baseball and softball players, tennis players, golfers, track and field athletes? They have had their seasons canceled. And the NCAA came out with a ruling last week that said that those spring sport athletes can get an extra year of eligibility if they choose to use it. Now, SDSU Athletic Director Justin Sell is on that Division I council, the group that made the decision. And we talked with Justin this week about how that came about and what happens now. This decision that the council made, basically, does it clear the way for schools now to work with scholarships and granting eligibility compensation? What did the ruling do for the schools?
Yeah, I think at bare minimum, trying to address the needs of the spring student athletes in particular, and most of them would have qualified for a waiver in normal circumstances by not playing a large portion of their season. So this was really to kind of clear the deck and make that process much easier. From an NCAA perspective, creating a waiver, then you don't have to deal with each case individually. The schools can help in that process. And then, the big challenge moving down the road is operationalizing this and trying to figure out how you manage rosters. Most of us, our financial picture next year is still being worked on and trying to be figured out. And so there's going to be a variety of different ways to look at that, but creating that opportunity for student athletes to have that chance to pick up that year, and not just for seniors, although I think most of us feel for the seniors as much as anybody, but for all those student athletes that lost a year, this gives them ability to get that year back. Each school will have the ability to figure out how that might work for them.
So there's some decisions for coaches in each department coming up, though. For the most part, spring sports are not one-to-one scholarship opportunities. It's not a head count sport in baseball and basketball where these coaches have a certain number of scholarships they can distribute how they want. Is there going to be some tough decisions for these coaches to make as far as maybe some redistribution of these scholarships? Or do they have the additional monies, as you said?
Yeah, I think trying to be creative, trying to look for maybe some different ways to fundraise for those scholarships that are above and beyond. Certainly some coaches may not finish recruiting right now, and they might not bring in a couple of their student athletes to be able to keep the seniors, and some of them might be able to figure out how to balance that in their normal allotment where it wouldn't even be above what we normally do. And so we're going to have to work through being creative, and each sport will be totally different. We have some sports that only have one senior, and then we have some sports that have 15 or 20. And so just kind of on an individual basis, walking through where those student athletes are at, which ones want to move on, and those that want to stay, how do we work with them? And you're right, most spring sports are on partial scholarship, so those students have to make a decision, do you want to take a partial scholarship and then pay for another year of school? That's got to be part of them and their families' decisions as well.
And you've made the huge decision. You dealt with the transfer issues and all these things as a member of this Division I council. Was this unprecedented for you that obviously, I don't think you've ever had a case like this where you had to make a decision like this, but where does this kind of fit into the big pictures, the big decisions you've had to make as part of this council?
Yeah, I think just given the nature of what we're dealing with, I think for all of us in any business, you're dealing with them in yours as well. And we interestingly also fit into higher education. And so what happens on our campus certainly will affect what happens in athletics as well. And so there's just so many layers to try to get your head around. And I think trying to be able to just take a deep breath. The beauty with it is, and I told my staff this, Well, none of us have had pandemic and dealing with a pandemic on our resumes or part of our experiences. We deal with adversity all the time, and coaches and student athletes, athletic programs, this is what we're built for. We have the skill set, we have the tools. We just have to figure out how to apply them to a new situation and figure out how to do that and coming together. And I think what's really strange to me is with all the complexity that's out there, it's actually now just breaking down and getting back to simple things. And the simple things are making sure that your family stays healthy and that we do our part, that we're taking care of our neighbors and helping others, that we focus on our student athletes' academics. They went online here a week ago Monday, making sure that transition went well for them, graduating our seniors, and then helping them register for classes next fall. And that was kind of our message last week. Let's just do those things. If we do that, we win the day. And if we win each day, we'll start winning some weeks. And we'll figure out how to get back to scheduling games and having summer camps and recruiting and all the other things that we do. But I think this is a great time to sit back and really understand the priorities that we all have in our lives. And some of those things, this is much bigger than any of us individually. And so how do we figure out as a group how to come together and solve it? And I think the communication piece, just like doing this interview, that's the big challenge, is how you connect people. We're so used to being in arenas and being with our fans and watching our student athletes compete at practices. And now all of a sudden, just in one fell swoop, that's gone. And so how do you create those meaningful exchanges for us as humans when we're so used to it, to try to do it when we have to stay apart? That's really probably the biggest challenge, concern for me, is that my staff knows that we care, they're not alone, and we're going to get through this. We'll get through it together.
Appreciate the time. Absolutely. Well said. Justin, thanks a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Tom.
Well, up next, you can't meet, you can't practice, you can't work out together. So how in the world does a new head football coach take over a program at a time like this? We'll check in with a new guy at Northern State.
Midco Sports Magazine on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Welcome back to Midco Sports Magazine. Around this time of the year, not only would our focus be on traditional spring sports, but spring football as well. For colleges across the country, it's a critical time to implement a plan for next season. And while all football programs are dealing with the loss of these practices because of the coronavirus pandemic, it's especially painful for one brand new head coach in the NSIC.
Please help me welcome the 30th head football coach in NSU history to Wolves Country, Mr. Mike Schmidt.
December 9th, 2019 was just months ago, even if it feels like eons. The regular season had ended just a few weeks earlier for Northern State football, and now the Wolves were meeting their new head coach for the 2020 season and beyond. The selection of Mike Schmidt to oversee the football program was quick but thorough, and it allowed Mike to get to know his players early.
How many times have you met with the team as a whole since you've been at Aberdeen?
Yeah, I mean, probably 8 to 10 times is my guess as an entire group that we've been able to kind of get together and talk about things that aren't really football, and just talk about, some expectations, some cultural things, just to get together.
But when it comes to the gridiron, actually seeing how his team performs, Schmidt remains in the dark.
Have you had a practice with your entire team actually on the football field yet?
No, we were right before everything hit. We were our guys were on spring break actually, as the NCAA tournament was being canceled for basketball, and kind of as everything it really started to go down.
In all likelihood, there will be no spring football across the country. And while that might seem like everyone's on the same level, the reality for Schmidt is far different.
Your team doesn't really understand or know your on the field in practice coaching style. How do you make up for that?
Yeah, you can't. This is just going to be time lost, and it's devastating for our program to lose out on that, because everybody's going to have a much larger advantage against us that they've had systems in.
Coaches can be flexible with their game plans, but Schmidt's needed a little more dexterity to handle something like this. His first step was identifying areas he could rely on, And for him, that starts with an incumbent at the game's most important position.
We're really lucky we have a starting quarterback coming back in Hunter Troutman. That's a big piece of this thing that Hunter's played a ton of snaps for us here and has a lot of experience. And so I think that part of it makes that evaluation process a little bit calmer on the head coach.
What's up, Wolves Nation? Hunter here. Hope everybody's doing well, staying safe.
The other step is communicating in multiple ways. The Northern State Football Twitter account and other social media channels have showcased individual players over the past few weeks in various settings, providing updates on how they're staying involved and staying safe. It's a matter of both keeping the team engaged and keeping them accountable.
Just staying updated with my classes. I'm actually working on a paper right now for one of my psychology classes.
I think the key to any sort of social media is just trying to match what's actually happening at your place to what you're putting out there. So we're trying to pull that personality out of them. And so this is just one of those other things that we're trying to do with them is get them out in front of the camera, get them out in front of their teammates, their incoming recruits, the recruits to their teammates, their coaches, and just let us see who you are.
The powers of technology may be a comfort right now, but they'll become a crutch later.
I think the biggest part is to just evaluate our players, to see really where we're at. You know, we can see a lot of them in the weight room and what they're doing, but it's tough to get an evaluation on them as we go into fall to really kind of let everybody know where they're at.
And that's why if the spread of coronavirus has slowed down by the end of summer, fall camp will be more important than ever before, with Schmidt and his staff approaching it with an even greater sense of urgency.
We're just going to keep plugging along and try to get our stuff done, and whenever they lift all the stuff, we're going to hit the ground running and be ready to go back together.
One of the biggest things that Schmidt told me is balancing his team's mental health is just as important as balancing their physical health. He says coaches always tend to overestimate how much they can do during a certain period of time, but that's especially relevant now that there are social distancing measures in place. Nevertheless, he still plans on being very deliberate and very intentional about getting his point across and getting his players and staff in his new system so that they can be fully ready once they hit the field again.
So fingers crossed on actually getting the football season started when we do get to September. Now the NFL usually starts their season before that, and some of our locally grown pros like Dallas Goddard are hoping that that is the case and they can get the season started on time. We talked with the former Jackrabbit and current Philadelphia Eagle on what he's doing right now and what the team and the NFL are telling him. All right, Dallas, tell us where you're at today here in April as we get started in April. Where are you at and what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm out in Irvine, California, where I've spent the last 3 off seasons training, staying in shape, doing everything I can to become a better football player. And yeah, like you said, this year's been the wildest for sure. There's things in my day-to-day that are pretty much the same, but there's a lot that are completely different with the whole coronavirus. Trying to stay safe, keep myself safe, see the people that I'll be seeing in the next few weeks safe as well. So that's kind of everybody's job right now.
All right. What is the team, what is the NFL telling you guys about what kind of timeline you're on right now as far as getting even the season started when it comes to August even? It seems like a long time to be thinking that far ahead, but what is the team telling you guys right now?
Yeah, like you said, the season's still a long ways away, which is a very good thing for the players, the football fans. Hopefully we'll have that season. But we had a conference call with a specialist from Yale. I can't remember his name, but he kind of filled us in, talking about OTAs, which were supposed to start April 20th, are now, he said there's like a 0% chance of having those. He thinks the earliest that the season or the facilities will open will be at that nearing the end of July, kind of when the normal season would start. And he said he was still optimistic on a season. So that's kind of where I am right now, just staying in shape and got to be ready for that season starter.
All right, what's 2020 looking like for you? Year 3, buddy. It's going to be a big year. What's 2020 going into this season? What do you want to maybe accomplish that you haven't in the first 2 years now?
It's a big year for me. But no, I'm just excited to get back to work with the guys. But there's a lot of expectations for the Eagles, always around it. Obviously, I made the playoffs my first 2 seasons, but I want to keep going. Hopefully we can get back to the Super Bowl, win another one. And then personally for me, just be on the field as much as I can. Obviously I want to score 20 touchdowns and have thousands of yards, but just kind of take it as I can get it, and do everything I can to help the team win, put us in the best position possible.
And you've gained a great reputation as a great blocker in the NFL so far. They haven't forgotten about you as a pass catcher, though, have they?
No, I don't think so. Obviously, we have one of the best pass-catching tight ends in the league that we've ever seen, really, with Zach Ertz, that I get a play behind, watch him do his day-to-day routine, watch how he is as good as he is. But, no, hopefully we can use 12 personnel more. The more balls I can catch, the more I love that. So hopefully they didn't forget about me as a pass catcher.
All right, buddy. Stay safe. We appreciate the time. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you so much. Good talking to you.
Up next, when the players can't come to the workout, you got to take the workout to the players. We'll show you how they're getting it done at the University of South Dakota. Coming up next.
Midco Sports Magazine on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Welcome back to Midco Mag, the lost season. I am Jay Elson. Strength and conditioning programs are the heartbeat of college athletics. So even in today's uncertain times, the training cannot stop. I caught up with the chief performance expert at the University of South Dakota to find out how his Coyotes are adapting to life without the use of one of the finest facilities in the country. Normally echoing with the unmistakable sounds of plates and power, the University of South Dakota's state-of-the-art 7,500 square foot weight room, like the rest of the sports world, currently stands eerily quiet.
Obviously, we would prefer to be coaching our athletes right now, but now what we're doing is spending a lot of time checking in on our athletes, making sure that, I guess that whole term safe and sound takes on a whole new meaning to us now.
Cleet McLeod is in his 3rd year as the Coyotes' head strength and conditioning coach. Pushing athletes toward peak physical condition is his passion, even when the lifestyle it requires is suddenly a little harder to nurture.
We want to make sure that we can keep them productive and busy and healthy and moving, because that's a real big part of them emotionally, spiritually. We want to give them an opportunity to stay focused on what's important. That's, obviously their family, obviously themselves, but we also want them to just really focus on being healthy right now.
That's challenging with a sport like football, where McLeod is attempting to keep 80 student athletes on track through an especially important time of year.
We start to pivot here. We start to change into, we're doing a whole lot more Olympic lifting this time of year. We want to convert all of that great strength and muscle that they developed in the early off season. We want to start turning that into power, and power into speed, and speed into resiliency and conditioning, and just good overall fitness.
That's where creativity has come in. McLeod and his staff have been actively pushing at-home opportunities such as this basic body weight program on social media.
We have a system established that all of us have contributed to, no matter if you're playing football, women's basketball, anything else that we have going on where people are in an athletic endeavor. Shoot, the golf team. Everybody is working out in a system that is very modular. Okay, so whenever we get thrown a curveball like we have right now, all we do is adjust the system to the needs of what's going on.
One way they've done that is by posting video demonstrations for a number of different exercises. Those have varied from traditional to lighthearted, but they've all pointed toward the same message: find your own way to grind.
We want the guys to be internally motivated. We know that they're disciplined. We know that they're all very accountable, but we need to make sure that they're I don't think motivated is the right word, but I think that we need to make sure that they're influenced in the right direction right now. We want to make sure that they remember that this is part of their, not just their sports performance, but their overall physical health. And if we can tie those things together and somehow as a group maintain a level of accountability, I think we're going to be in a good place.
If the first couple of weeks are any indication, the Coyotes appear to be on the right path. A handful of players have shared their individual interpretations of productivity on Instagram or Twitter. Much needed shots of encouragement for a teacher longing to reestablish the link with those he cares about most.
We can talk about how much they need me, but I need them. And this is tough. This is really rough for all of us that are involved. When we develop the relationships that we do and spend the unbelievable amount of time together that we do, it becomes something that that's just part of your lifestyle. Innovation is driven by times like these. So it'll be it's exciting, and I'm sure the kids are going to show me some things that are going to blow my mind. But in terms of their follow through and their character and their approach to their work, I'm not going to be shocked at all because I know what they're going to do.
Nutrition is another big piece to the puzzle here, specifically adjusting calorie needs so they remain appropriate for each individual's level of activity. McLeod is extremely confident in the competency of his athletes in that department, but says he and his staff will continue to help them monitor it from a distance.
Thanks for watching. Join us next week for another new episode of Midco Sports Magazine.
This has been Midco Sports Magazine, presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.